Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Nerd Night's painting of Munchkin Dungeon, where we're going to be doing the Plutonium Dragon from this ugly piece of gray to this absolute masterpiece. With some quick, easy steps that's not too difficult. Let's jump right into it. The miniature is pretty normal looking. We're going to just do some highlights and some two-tone variation on the stomach, and that's basically it. First things first, you know what time it is. Oh yeah. I'm using Corax white spray paint to prime the miniature, but we are going to be using an airbrush in this tutorial. So if you want to use white on that, you can. But I'm just covering the entire model in Corax white. The base color of the miniature is going to be Warpstone Glow. Again, I'm using an airbrush. If you do not have an airbrush, you don't necessarily need one. You're just going to take several layers to completely cover the white on the actual miniature. But it can be done. It's just more time consuming. This method is very quickly done over the miniature. I'm putting in some airbrush thinner, and we're going to completely cover this model with Warpstone Glow. If you are using an airbrush, make sure you cover the front and give it a little bubbly to mix up the paints. And when you start going around the miniature, make sure we're going in circles and we just get a nice even coverage. We're covering the entire model with this color as we're going to do some highlights here in a minute. Just completely go around the model again, and don't be afraid to give it a nice liberal coating. And while we got a minute, I want to thank our sponsors for this video. Absolutely nobody. Maybe my dog, as my dog sits here next to my feet and stares at me in wonderment, wondering what I'm doing with my life. Again, if you don't have an airbrush, it's okay. You can go around and cover the entire model. Use a large brush to do this and let it completely dry if you are using a brush before applying the next second, third, fourth coat. Well, we've got the model completely covered, and it looks pretty good for its base coat of Warpstone Glow. We're going to use the highlight of Moot Green to get the stomach and from the top portion. I'm going to spray the entire front of the miniature for the stomach, and I'm going to do some sprays for the top portion. When spraying from the top, do it like you would with the zenithal highlighting and just spray from directly above the miniature, which will cover the top portion, give it some highlighting, and get the wings too. Very light, don't go overboard, and just quickly do it and just get a nice little highlight. For the teeth, horns, and toenails, we're using Rakarth Flesh. We're going to start by painting the horns. Make sure you're getting a nice thin layer. Make sure you're thinning your paints with a milky consistency. It's going to take about 2 to 3 layers to completely cover all the surface areas. I'm using a large brush to cover as much area as possible as I do the teeth and the horns, and just going around the model and quickly doing it. And just going around it. I think I was listening to some synthwave music while doing this, and it was just really chilling me out, giving me some real chill vibes, dude. Don't forget the little pieces of bone on top of the wings too. And like you're painting your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband's toenails, just get a nice, easy paint on them. Practice, if you don't already do it. And after 2 to 3 coats on each piece we're painting, it looks pretty good. We're going to use Agrath Earthshade for the horns, and this is a completely optional. I might not even do it. I would just do the base color over the top of it. But if you are going to do it, make sure you're getting the crevices at the base of the horn. Otherwise, you don't really need to do it, but you can if you want. The second layer for the bones are going to be Ushabti bone, obviously. Bone. If you did put the Agrath Earthshade on, you're going to need probably 4 layers to cover up all that wash. The reason the wash doesn't work very well is because it's too much of a smooth area. I shouldn't have done it. I did it anyway. It looks fine at the end, but it just takes more time. And hey, we're trying to save time, not take more of it, because it's precious. Just go around and hit every piece of bone that we've already painted with the Rakhar flesh with the Ushabti bone. And again, get those painting skills down on the toenails so you can show your significant other how amazing you are at painting. Or maybe you don't want to show them because you don't want to do it. I don't know. I don't know what you're into. I don't know what you like. Couple layers on the teeth, nothing too crazy. You can leave a little bit of space for the Rakhar flesh at the top of the tooth to just kind of get that contrast going. For the remainder of the bones, you're going to use ivory from Vallejo or a similar color, and for the eyes, we're going to use ivory as well. We're going to do a little trick that's pretty neat here in a second. This layer of ivory is probably going to take 2 to 3 coats again, as long as you're thinning your paints, which you should, as I preach multiple times every video. Make sure we're just getting nice even coverage and go around the model quickly, efficiently, and just cover it. Don't go over it again after you've already painted it before it's done drying, as it'll make it smudge and look pretty crappy. Just finishing up the model and making sure we cover all the areas. Usually a big brush as well, as it will speeding up this process. It is rather slow. And again, paint those toenails. Perfection. All right, we're gonna be painting the eye. Just get all in the eye socket. If you get some on the, basically the top eyelid or the bottom eyelid, that's okay, because what we're about to do, it's gonna cover it up completely, and it's a super easy technique, but critical in making the eye look like it should from the card provided by the game. All right, we're gonna grab some Nolan oil, and we're gonna place this in a heavy dosage in the actual eye. Start by loading up your paintbrush, as I did not in this first part of the eye. Get a heavy amount where it's almost dripping off of the paintbrush, and you're just gonna put it inside of the paintbrush. Now, if you have a decent amount on there, it's gonna automatically go to the recesses of the eye. So it's gonna cover up the bottom eyelid, the top eyelid, and it's gonna go into where the eyeball, the pupil would be, and it's gonna look real nice. The eye might look a little dark, but we're going to come lighten that back up with some ivory here in a little bit after the Nolan oil dries. For the back fin area, we're going to be using some Averland Sunset for the base coat. Just be careful when painting the back fin. You don't want to get too much on the actual skin or scales, the dragon, I guess you could say. Just take your time on this one and do as neat of a straight line as humanly possible while doing this, because we can't really clean it up that much since we used the airbrush and we did some top highlighting with the moot green. While that is drying, we're going to be putting some highlighting on the front. We're going to be using Flash Gets Yellow, Moot Green, and some Lamia Medium. If you don't have Lamia Medium, just use water and put a lot of it in it. We're just going to be putting 1 scoop of each of the Moot Green and Flash Gets Yellow, coupled with about 3 to 4 drops of the Lamia Medium. And we're going to build up this highlight with a nice even coat over about 3 to 4 coats of this mixture. We're going to go off the top of each line, or I guess you could say the bottom of each line. Just the top portion of each portion. There we go. And we're going to put 2 to 3 layers. Make sure that you have the previous layer completely dry before putting on a new layer. And we're just going to go through each one. Try not to get too much on your paintbrush, as you don't want it to pool and start dripping down. Just enough to cover the area, and that's it, because we're going to be doing multiple layers. Again, just doing the next layer, and then just going over them, waiting for them to dry, and going over the next layer. Simple. Here is after 3 or 4 layers of the mixture, and as you can see, you could have a nice two-tone contrast on the stomach. I just went over again gradually to get a little bit more with a light amount of the mixture, and just letting it sit, and that's basically it. And from the side, it looks actually pretty good. For the highlight on the back fins, we're just using some Flash Gets Yellow. Just go over the entire back portion of the fin. Be very careful again, and we're just using Flash Gets Yellow, and that's all we're gonna do. Simple. For the eyes, we are going to go over with our ivory, and we're just going to pick out those pieces of white to make the eyes pop out more. And just be very careful, take your time. Don't put too much white on the brush, and just go around the black of the eyes, and you'll see that it'll make a big difference. And do what I do when you overload your brush, just put it on your hand. Makes it easy. For the nostrils and inside the ears, we're just going to put some really watered down Abaddon black. We're also going to just kind of pick out a little bit of the eyes to make the pupils stand out just a little bit more. So when you're going around, just kind of get the edges of that pupil just a little bit, just to make the pupils a little bit bigger, as I thought that they were kind of small with just the shade in there. All right, overload your brush with some really watered down Abaddon black, and you're just going to put them inside the nostrils, and you'll see what this effect has, something similar to the Nolan oil of the eyes. You can see it's still green on the inside, but black around the inside of the nostrils portion area. Yep, that makes sense. And it looks just like the picture. Also get inside the ears just to give a little black and give it a little bit of contrast to match the picture. The second to last step is the spots. We're going to be using Nurgling Green, Scarskin Green, and Warboss Green. I have the hardest time pronouncing those. Just go around the model and freehand some little circles because it matches the picture from the card of the game. It doesn't need to be anything specific. Just go around and pick them out. Pretty easy. Just continue it with all 3 colors, and make sure you're getting, there's a couple of spots on the head. Just look at the picture and you can follow that, what I did, or you can pick out your own little spots and put little circles. Some of the lighter colors you might need to put a couple of the same layer on the circle, but just cruise around and pick them out. Same thing with the last color. And as you can see, this model is actually looking pretty good. Looks just like the picture on the card, and that's what we're striving for. Nothing too crazy, pretty easy. And for the base, we're going to use a Mechanica Standard Gray. Just simple. It took me a total of 2 layers to get a full coverage using a big paintbrush. Don't use something small because you're going to be here for an hour. And just cruise around and get the entirety of it, and that's about it. Once you're done with that, it turns into voila! This absolute masterpiece. Pretty easy. Nothing too crazy. I didn't throw something crazy at you, but you can see that it matches the actual card and what we're looking for. Nothing crazy, but it looks good. Alright, I want to thank everybody who tuned into this tutorial on how to paint the Plutonium Dragon. I tried to make it as simple as possible to save time, because that's what I don't have a lot of. Married, wife, kids, dogs. Don't have a lot of time. So thank you for tuning in. I greatly appreciate you supporting this channel. If you want to check us out on the gram, Nerd Nights, nerd.nights, cruise over and check us out, as we're always posting new stuff, things coming up and whatnot. But I greatly appreciate you checking us out. Give us a like, subscribe, leave a comment below what you want me to see paint next, as we're going to continue this series. Thank you. Have a great day. Paint on.